Daredevil.
We're so and right. I know we meme a lot, and we say this phrase many, many times. Most of the time, kind of as a meme. Let's be real. But actually, for once, I do think we might be back.
We are. I believe the phrase is so fucking back. However, I'm going to continue to huff copium that Foggy is in fact not dead. For the foreseeable future. I do have some issues with the episodes 1 and 2.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of the discourse on Twitter today. After watching the show, like
Mhm.
as I was watching each episode this evening, I was getting braver scrolling on Twitter because I'm like, I've watched over 50% of what's come out. There's less that can be spoiled now. So I was kind of scrolling through, and as with everything, you've got people who will point out genuine problems and then overreact to said problems. And then you've got people who point out things that they think is a problem that I don't think is a problem. That is the beauty of discussion, right? One criticism I've seen that I agree with is they've, so far it seems, changed the entire supporting cast. Foggy's gone, Karen's gone. Yeah, they were in episode 1, but we've not seen them since.
Yeah, I suppose other than Kingpin.
I wouldn't say supporting cast, I'd say he's main antagonist.
But other than him, yeah, no one's the same.
Yeah. Which I do have an issue with. If there was if they spent this season handing over the reins to the new supporting cast, and then from next season it was just this cast, I wouldn't have as big an issue. Because these characters seem interesting and I'm excited for them.
Yeah,
but
I get what you mean.
For there to be Foggy and Karen aren't going to be in the show, to we've rewritten it, they're going to be in the show, and everyone goes, fuck yeah. And now they were in it for half an hour.
Do you know, I wonder if this was partly linked in with the whole stuff of like our hands were a bit tied with some stuff. Like
maybe
some of these decisions of not bringing back old supporting casts and getting some new, like they're kind of like, we're kind of already locked in on going this way.
Now, the criticism I've seen, which I do not agree with, is people talking about the amount of CGI in the fight scene with Bullseye / the quality of the CGI. I think, although it is clearly CGI for a decent amount of the fight, it doesn't come across as, oh my god, I'm watching a video game cutscene to me. And it comes across as these are two basically superhumans having a really weird fight, which it is because of the nature of their abilities. And it actually added a bit to me.
So
we lost parts of what I enjoyed about Daredevil and the way his fights worked. We absolutely did. But we also got parts in. We got to see Matt more acrobatic than we've ever seen him before, which was really nice.
So with the fight stuff, I don't think there's as much CGI as some people think there is. The whole beginning chase thing, yes, there is a lot of digital double stuff there that is clearly done to, like you say, make him more acrobatic, because that's stuff that's very hard to do practically in a believable sense, because it's like a human can't actually move that quick and that like. So I'm okay with that. Yes, could it have been cleaned up a bit? I think they did a good job because they had the advantage of it was nighttime. You can hide a lot in nighttime with lighting. It makes their life easier. And I know this is Disney, but I will always give some leeway because it is a TV show. The actual fight in the bar, I don't think there's as much CGI as some people were saying there was. I think the issue was actually the whole smoke grenade would be what was the CGI, and I think that was what threw people off because of how it's comped on. It then made the actual fight footage look weird. Because I was watching, I was like,
very real chance to that.
There is no way they have a smoke grenade going off constantly in there.
No, not a chance.
So that's all comped on. And if smoke, let's be real, smoke is not an easy thing to comp onto a onto a visual
How do you get the
effect.
translucence level right and the density?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
So I think that added to a weird look to the fight, but I also really enjoyed it. Wasn't quite a wanna, but essentially was. There was
so they got that vibe that we had.
That's it.
So even to the point of at no point I think did they do a sub out of Charlie Cox for a stunt double. Which in Daredevil, when a door would get closed and you'd watch something else for a second, that's when they'd slip a stunt double in. The iconic one I always think of is in season 1, I think it's episode 4, with the first ever hallway fight scene in Daredevil, not ever, Christ. When he goes in and out of the rooms and you just hear the noises, you can see, if you really look, that is no longer Charlie Cox who comes out. The level of fighting goes up 10% with more insane shit. They fall into another room, and then guess what? Out comes Charlie Cox. Brilliant TV making, but it's fucking obvious that in between, that's not Charlie Cox, and you can notice the difference in quality of the physical prowess.
Yeah. There was... they got the vibe of a wanna. There was obviously I definitely know there was hidden cuts when people were fleeing across the camera. So there's probably a cut there when the doors in the bar shut. But the stuff up the stairwell and all that, they got that vibe, and to get that, that is our kickstart into this new season. I love that they essentially were this is what everybody loved from the Netflix show. We are going to nail that vibe off the rip so that you don't feel like you're in a completely new world, which I think was a smart decision.
So here's my thing with it, and this is neither a good or bad thing, this is just a fact thing in my opinion. I think some of the criticism is coming from the fact that it doesn't look like the Netflix show.
Yep.
It looks more like a really high quality 6-episode limited series, a la The Penguin.
Yeah.
In the fact of it doesn't feel like they have sets, and there's a lot more happening on the street of New York, and it's not the same street every time.
Yeah.
Whereas the Netflix stuff, they had sets designed because they were working on 4 TV shows that used a lot of the same stuff, with a lot of character crossover. So Hogarth's office, all of the apartments and that was where a lot of the discussion and stuff happened, and they were lit very, this is big TV we're making. This is, we're rattling off seasons.
Yeah.
That visual change throws you off. It does. Especially when you think you're getting the same product. I think that's caused a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. But I might be, in the entire world right now, one of the most qualified people to talk about the quality difference between Netflix and this.
Yeah, I think
because I've just finished watching all the Netflix stuff.
You are 1 in 100 people probably that have done this recently, where they've binged all the Netflix.
And I promise you, if you think the Netflix stuff is far and away infinitely better on writing, cinematography, acting, and action, there are some rose-tinted glasses going on. Because like I've just said, there are numerous occasions in every single show where I, not watching super critically in that mistake sense, spot when there's a stunt double or whatever.
Yeah.
It's what I refer to as charm, right? It has a bit of charm to it. What I will say is, where it's lost a little bit of that charm, it's been replaced with other charm, like the slightly CGI stuff, which makes it feel a touch Uncanny Valley. But I think the level of Uncanny Valley they've hit is actually perfect, because in my opinion, that's what it would feel like to see a fucking superhero swinging from buildings. It would feel a bit uncanny. You'd be like, what the fuck was that? That was a dude with horns just swinging through the city. What's going on? That would feel a bit weird. Some of the stylistic changes they made for the cinematography, I fuck with heavy. When they're in the bar in that opening scene, and it goes from letterboxed to full screen as he's trying to listen to the phone call, to then bringing down the aspect ratio and zooming in to show that his ears are tuning into what he's talking about, that fucked so incredibly hard. That was a great decision. I love it. I love it so much.
There's some great lighting choices that have been also similar creative choices, in the sense of at the end of episode 1, the constant putting him in a red light to show that he's on this edge of going back to being the Daredevil. Like, those feelings are coming back of what kind of led him down that path. And like, there's so much creative, subtle, like, storytelling there through things that aren't obvious.
Yes. I completely agree. I think it, for the most part, it is difficult, right? Everyone's expecting it to just be the same thing we had from Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
That was never going to be the case. Them sets don't exist anymore. While some of the people who worked on it previously still work on it, they've also gone off, done other things. They've changed as a creative person in that time. They're going to have different opinions now. Things are going to be different. I think too many people thought it would just feel like season 4, right?
Yeah.
What I will say is you've got to treat it fairly as a TV show. I think we've seen a lot more to like than dislike, but there is a bit of a difference. Netflix, for better or worse, isn't a criticism or a glazing for either side here. Just my opinion on the facts. Netflix did do a bit more practical.
Yep.
But they also didn't do the practical very well all the time. Daredevil doesn't come across as a super acrobat in a lot of the Daredevil series. He just doesn't. And they didn't try and polish it up, which gave it a charm. Absolutely fine.
Yep.
However, that was when the Netflix stuff was in a bit of a world where it, although it was connected to the MCU, they didn't want to hard connect it too much, which left it a bit weird and floaty.
Yep.
Now, it's been made by different people. Disney have a different standard. Whether you think it's better or worse is irrelevant. They have a different standard for the amount of practical done and how polished that gets. And this is also now absolutely 100% definitely in the MCU.
Yes.
Therefore, it needs to look and feel a bit more superhuman. Well, yeah, therefore, they go for the Daredevil swinging through the streets. When he breaks the cop's arm in the fight at the end of episode 2, that blood would have looked different in Netflix. Because it would have come out of the sleeve more. That is a style change based on how practical it was, because the arm was more aggressive than it would have been. Like, that arm breaking backwards wouldn't have been that aggressive in the Netflix show, because it would have been more practical.
Yeah.
It would have just been like choreography, and then they would have just added like a blood pack or whatever. This one, it looked more like maybe there was a practical trick to make his arm invert, because it fucking inverted, I saw it. And then it was CGI to add the blood on instead of a blood pack because of whatever mechanism they used for the arm thing. So it looks different, but it achieves the same thing. I think it felt a bit more brutal. And this is the things you've got to accept. Well, it's not going to be the same show.
No, it's not. Like, and you've also got to remember the era when the Netflix shows were coming out, CGI was still, like, good CGI was still only done at film level. Like, if you think the closest competitor to the Netflix show at the time was the CW shows, and the CGI on that was a little rough at times, and it's been meme to all hell. They had to lean on practical, and while I would say practical in a lot of sense often comes across better, there is limitations to it. Like, and especially practical done on stunt stuff done on a TV show doesn't have the budget to go full on all out with like custom stunt rigs and all sorts to get like these crazy stunts done. There's a budget constraint there. And like you say, the polish isn't there, which gave it a nice charm, and it kind of had its visual style. It's completely different landscape now. CGI is a lot more accessible. Disney wants to push CGI into things because it allows them to do more. Whether they have it fully polished well enough, that's your decision. There's still practical stuff that happened in this show.
Like, so much.
Straight away, when Foggy gets shot, I'm like, squib pack. Just the way that it splattered blood, I was just like, that was practical. That was well done. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be differences. People are going to have to kind of accept that. I think the core and heart of the show, though, is as close as it could be and still feels like this is our Daredevil. Just slightly different tweak on the visuals.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. And I think don't get me wrong, I don't expect everyone to be necessarily over the moon and happy about it, but they need to not act like it makes this show inferior just because they don't particularly like the way it's being done. But now that we've got over like the discussion about the first episodes because they're so raw still, let's talk about the story a little bit.
I was right.
My boy Foggy's not dead. He's not.
Okay. I'm sorry. He's dead.
Are you ready to hear the copium I was huffing when he got shot? You're gonna love the copium I was on.
It wasn't directly on his head.
So yeah, initially because he got shot in the gut, I was like, that always gives you hope. It's designed to give you hope, especially when it's Bullseye. He doesn't miss. As the fight's going on and they're coming back to the heartbeat, what I was genuinely thinking was going to happen was this was going to be as the snap happened, and Foggy was going to get dusted while bleeding out, and then he was going to come back. And as we know, everyone who came back from the blip came back safe.
Well,
he would have come back safe.
From what we know.
Yeah, no, that's the official law. People who were in aeroplanes got brought back down safely on the ground. Everyone came back in a safe way.
Just reappears on the street bleeding out.
Yeah, so this is my thing. If we accept that as the law, which we've been told is the law, everyone who came back safe, you wouldn't have someone come back bleeding out. Yeah. So in my head, I was like, is this how we're going to get the moment of Daredevil experience in the snap? He's going to think Foggy's just died, and then he's going to realise loads of heartbeats have disappeared. And then we'll get a little time jump, and Foggy will come back, and then he'll be like, oh my god, you're okay? I thought you were going to die. And then it gets to play with that whole idea of Foggy's going to die, Foggy's not going to die. We didn't get that. No. I was huffing so much copium. Even after his heart stopped and we got the moment, I was like, maybe there's still a chance.
I knew the moment they were outside the bar and then Matt went off to go save this person that he had, Benny. I was like, this is Foggy's dying. I was like, this is what everyone predicted. I was just like, I could just feel it. I was like, this is it. I want to say that I was right on how that he used the Foggy death. You thought last week, you were saying you were thinking it was going to be what brought him back to being Daredevil.
Yeah, I thought Foggy might not die 10 minutes in. I thought you might get more Foggy than that. How foolish of me.
Yeah, I was thinking it was going to be a flashback. I was slightly wrong in that, no, this is where we're jumping straight in, and then we get a time jump. But yeah, it was used as the catalyst for him stopping. Am I upset that Foggy is dead? Of course. We all love Foggy. Man. It's a sad day. Do I think that they needed that to happen to put Matt in this place of not wanting to be Daredevil, kind of changing like that was clearly the story direction they decided on. We talked about this last week. You need a big catalyst to do that. There's two people that do that. And unfortunately, Foggy was the one that had to be used in this situation.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to give you some copium? It's been announced that Foggy will be filming for season 2.
Yeah,
I think he's filming purely for flashbacks.
It's absolutely going to be flashbacks, but more copium. I'm going to huff the copium.
Here we go.
Just because it's fun to. I'm not 100% sure of the White Tiger's amulet powers.
Right.
And they are definitely leaning a bit more on a comic booky vibe in this show.
Yeah.
There is nothing more comic booky than someone being fucking dead and then just not being.
True.
There is nothing more comic booky than that. That is the most comic book thing that can happen.
I feel like that happens more often, though, to the actual heroes themselves.
It happens to fucking everyone. Apart from, traditionally, the Waynes, Uncle Ben, and Gwen Stacy. And, for a long time, Jason Todd. They were the 4 characters that forever people joked would stay dead. 2 of them are no longer dead.
Yeah, I mean, I am accepting that he's gone.
Yeah.
As sad as it is.
And going back to what I said about, I'm not sure how I feel about them changing the supporting cast so much.
Mm-hmm.
Really not a fan of Karen just running away to San Francisco. That feels very out of character. I know we don't know exactly what happened in the in between.
Yeah.
But that doesn't feel very Karen.
So I think this is where I think the creative changes showed. We originally weren't having anyone come back, were we?
No.
And then fans were like, "What? You're not bringing Karen and Foggy back?" Then there was a whole rewrite, which I think changed this whole reason as to why Matt stopped being Daredevil, and they changed it to use Karen and Foggy in Foggy's death. But they'd already kind of pre-decided this overarching story of like Wilson Fisk being mayor and Matt no longer is Daredevil, but how does he deal with this? And had this other idea of supporting characters, and it's like, well, shit, how do we now deal with Karen? And I think, unfortunately, the sloppiness of, oh, they had an issue between the two of them because of over Foggy's death, so Karen moved away. I think was unfortunately like a kind of the hands were tied situation again, which they've mentioned there was a couple of things they were stuck with, which is why I think we've heard she's filming for season 2, because they've now got like they can now from the get-go be like, okay, we can bring her back in properly.
I'm a bit. I don't think we're done with Karen for the season.
No,
because and this is metagaming a little bit. Deborah Ann Wolf has been talking about this project so much online that if she was only in like 10 total minutes of the first episode, she wouldn't make such a big deal about it.
No.
She would have, if she was a smart person for their career, would have gone, I'm excited to be back, would have said nothing, and then watched the internet lose its mind when she's only in the first episode. And then she would have gone to her agent and gone, when they call saying they need me back, increase the price by 10%.
Yeah,
right.
I think this start of the story arc that we're now on was kind of already pre-decided. They needed a reason for her to be not there, and then they've worked out how to bring her back in with the rewrites.
I've got a feeling our new mayor of New York might be what makes Karen go, hold the fucking phone, and comes back to fuck shit up.
Yeah, there's going to be some reason she comes back, and they eventually sit down and work through whatever the fuck went down. By the sounds of it, Matt vanished off the face of the earth for like a week.
He did a Matt, yeah.
Then Karen was like, well, you just abandoned me after our best friends died, and now
I also lost a friend and you just disappeared.
Yeah, so I'm going now, and then Matt's now upset because he's now been abandoned. So there's obviously some funny that he's now going to be dating a therapist. Sounds like he needs to go to go to one.
Say what you want about this show so far. They have already nailed the fact that Matthew Murdoch is a massive Catholic whore. Say what you want, it's the truth. I am enjoying the new supporting cast. While I miss our old supporting cast, Sherry, the police officer turned private investigator, seems like a cool dude.
Yeah.
The Kristen, I forget her middle name, McDuffie, I think it was, seems pretty cool. BB Urick.
Yeah, having a little internet news reporter.
Seeing her sit down with Fisk when Fisk killed her uncle that she is named after made my blood boil. I wanted her to pull a gun out of her handbag and shoot him in the fucking head.
Well, I think that's clearly, we know where that's
arc. Yeah,
we know that that's going somewhere. Fisk is obviously going to try and use her a bit for his gain. Yeah, no, the supporting cast is great, and I will say, not having Matt as Daredevil for these first couple of episodes, obviously skipping the opening bit and then from Time Jump onwards, it's been nice. I'm really enjoying the more lawyer side, the bantering stuff, the like politics side, like that story that's going on is very enjoyable, because what like the lawyer stuff and those stories were were fun from the Netflix show. Yes, of course, I want to see Matt put on the suit and go kick ass. But it is also fun that we're getting to see the funny side that people seem to forget, and like the kind of friendly banter that's going on amongst this group of people.
Matt trying to have a life
Yes.
that isn't Daredevil. It's just good, right? Good writing isn't about all my superheroes kicking ass. It's about exploring a person. And yeah, people might go, that's not what comics are about, bro. It absolutely fucking is. It's like the purest form of like an extended character piece.
Yeah.
And getting to see more of the courtroom demeanor is brilliant.
Yeah.
The White Tiger case being the case he's working on is fucking brilliant. I'm very excited to see how that goes.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels I think there is a lot more to be excited about for this show than there is to be sad that we're missing out on from the Netflix era.
Like, we're gonna see a story arc where Matt's dealing with, like, he personally crossed the line, so he hung up the suit. Also, the attitude of there are other vigilantes out there. It doesn't need every single one of us.
The man who dresses like a spider.
The man who dresses like a spider. There's
the one with a skull on his chest.
Yeah, the one with a skull on his chest. And then obviously we know White Tiger's out there. So there's this idea that there's other vigilantes just roaming around doing stuff. So like this story of Matt dealing with not and seemingly for the last year has done a good job of doesn't want to go anywhere near it. But it's Wilson Fisk is the catalyst that's clearly pulling him back in because of the history there. So yeah, all of that side is super interesting. I'm intrigued to see where this White Tiger story goes because it clearly involves Punisher in some degree.
So,
yes
and no.
So here's what I was going to ask you if you're on the same wavelength with me. Obviously, deliberately, we are shown that the dodgy cop, has a Punisher tattoo with the American flag in it. I remember when Punisher had to change its logo because certain cops were using it as a symbol, not really understanding the message of Punisher. And we talked about that when it was in the news, and this idea that these people that think they understand what the Punisher is, but actually they are exactly what the Punisher hates. I'm wondering if they're playing into that with this.
So in the comics, there are cops who wear the Punisher logo. Right. That is a thing. And they are dirty cops, and the Punisher kills them. These are dirty cops who agree conceptually with what the Punisher's doing, so they think it's okay for them to kill cops. Although the Punisher is genuinely psychotic and doesn't think what he's doing is wrong, he is of the opinion, that's why I didn't become a police officer. You became a police officer, you swore to follow the law. By breaking the law, you are the worst of the worst. I'm going to punish you for that.
Well, yeah, the Punisher
knows... that is the line we're going to be going, I expect.
Yeah,
and it's going to be so much fun watching the Punisher gun down dirty cops. I cannot wait.
Well, yeah, and it's like, it's going to be interesting to see Matt. Obviously, we know he goes and finds him, and is probably going to confront him about these cops thinking they're doing it for him, and then there's going to be this whole thing of
piss him off. Yeah,
then we're going to get to see that no, the Punisher hates these people. And yeah, I think we're
one thing you've not mentioned yet that me and Jenna instantly picked up on, and now I'm wondering if it was just an observation me and Jenna had. The second police officer that he threw into the ground
is dead.
He died, right?
Okay, yeah. So this was the other thing. I'm like,
okay, cool.
So okay, here's the thing. I'm not.
The first guy might be alive. That second guy's got to be dead, right?
I don't know. I will say
he seems very dead.
The choice by the sound engineers the Foley artists was an aggressive one, and it definitely made me go, hold up. I'm like, but surely Matt's he's not going to be still struggling with like he crossed the line once. Surely they're not going to have him like cross it again. But like they could, like in my head, I'm like, because we know this is still kind of he's getting over. He hasn't got over the Foggy situation. Like he's just buried it, and it's like, are we going to see this line of him still kind of crossing over the line sometimes? And it's going to take, like, he's not going to be checking himself. And is it then going to be Frank Castle that's like, no, that's what I do. You're meant to be better than me. We've been here and you've told me you're better. Like, and maybe it's Frank Castle that then snaps him out of it. But yeah, that crunch was a bit like...
It was a very aggressive choice.
Yes.
And it might just be because that's like the first real crunch we had of the show. Maybe that's just going to be how they're doing their crunches for like an unconscious dude. Because it's not something you think about. Yeah, but when a show has shown a noise to be like that dude's out cold now, and then you hear a different noise which sounds more aggressive, and in such a like a landing on the neck with such a snappy movement, your brain instantly goes, that sounds like a death noise, not an unconscious noise.
So if it was on his back, I'd be like, that cop's going to be paralyzed. Now I'm like, he's either paralyzed or he's dead.
Yeah. Very curious to see how that gets paid off next week. I want to know.
Well, here's something that I don't know if you also picked up on then. He got smacked in the face and blood dripped. He has blood there. There's like, is he going to clean it up? Is this now dirty cops in a dirty... Like, no one's going to know these cops are there because they're off duty and they're dirty. They're just going to eventually, like, these cops aren't showing up.
So, I have a thought.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way Daredevil's never left any DNA evidence at a crime scene. So, what might happen is that blood gets swabbed up, it goes in the system, and they go, that blood is the same as all of these other crime scenes. That is Daredevil's blood.
He's back.
And then that news gets back to Wilson Fisk.
Oh, yes. Didn't think about that.
And I don't know if this is a thing, this might be a thing in America, where when you become a lawyer and you join the bar, I think you have to give over a DNA sample. Might be a thing. I think it's definitely a thing in some states. I don't know about all states.
I don't know.
But because they're like it's something about by being an officer of the courts, your DNA has to be on system.
Possibly.
And even as a lawyer, even if you're not like a prosecutor, you are still an officer of the court, so your DNA has to be on system. So I don't know if it might just come back as that's Matthew Murdoch's blood. What the fuck?
Maybe.
But yes, there was a lot of emphasis put on that blood drop. Yeah. I don't know if that was the way they're showing his powers now, because they're using a lot of this, like, focusing in on a sound he hears.
I wasn't sure if it's like, that's probably the first time, let's be honest, that's probably the first time in a year that he's re-smelt his own blood. And is it like you say, sort of a bit of a
in the water type thing?
We're back here. I did enjoy the moment where he's obviously focused in on them and knows they're getting a gun out, and he's like, no, don't do this. Please don't do this. And I'm like, he's going to have to finally give up this gig.
Pacifism type beat, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the whole idea of that was like that line is almost like a double entendre. It's him going to them, please don't do this, but it's also him going to himself like, please don't get in a fight, please don't get in a fight, please, I don't want to do this, don't get in a fight. Yeah. He's talking to himself and them at the same time.
He's like, I'm not going to let myself die. So he's like, please don't put me in the situation where I'm going to have to fight back and show you who I really am. But yeah.
I also am kind of down for the officers to be okay, although I do think that noise decision is fucking wild if they're okay. And they don't say it was him because they don't want to admit they got their ass kicked by a blind lawyer.
Well,
like, that's a very kind of valid, like, it's also thing they'd stay silent about.
If they are alive, that whole situation was them being dirty cops, so they can't really talk about it because they shouldn't be doing it. So then, yeah, there's this situation, especially when they're then back in court and Matt's there all lawyered up and they're like, that fucking guy just beat our ass, what the fuck? Who the fuck is this guy?
Really, really curious. Definitely a cliffhanger for the end. of the second episode. Very excited to see what we get next week. But Daredevil's back, baby.
Yeah, it really is. And honestly, I'm loving these first 2 episodes. I get the complaints in some things, but overall, I think they've done a great job of kind of returning us to this world of Daredevil.
I agree.